He was in a hurry. He was warned to slow down, to do things right.
Run it for a bit. I know you're in a hurry.
I know. Well, I'm definitely going to make sure that I'm going to run the fuel. Once it starts up, I'm going to have the fuel on the whole way out.
He didn't listen, and he didn't make it. The inside story of Rebuild Rescue Sam Ganow crash of the Grumman Cougar with some never-before-seen footage from that day on Taking Off. Hi, I'm Dan Millican, and I've been in a hurry before. I can't think of a pilot I know who hasn't been in a hurry. I can look back and see several times that I got lucky. But for Sam Ganow of Rebuild Rescue, his rushing through pre-flight and lack of checklists cost him his life. And I'm going to talk to Jason from the Rebuild Rescue channel, and we're going to see some never-before-released footage that sheds a special light into what happened that tragic day in Pennsylvania. The NTSB final report is out, and Sam had water in his fuel system. He didn't sump. He didn't check. And when one of his two engines failed just after takeoff, Sam lost control and crashed. But we're going to go over some of the important nuances and look at some clips from moments before the crash. I want to say a word about the NTSB investigation into this crash. I've gone through the docket and final report, and while I'm a big fan of the NTSB, there's no government agency for investigations in the world as good as the NTSB. I'm surprised by the sloppiness and some inaccuracies in this report. And I understand the original investigator retired during the investigation, but there are interviews I know were conducted and not included in the docket, as we're going to find out. I'll get into the important questions on the NTSB investigation shortly, but as pilots, details matter. Precision matters. It's something I've had to learn. As a simple example of the sloppiness, in the final report, the pilot is given 999,999 hours in type. Yeah, we all know what that means, but in an investigation, accuracy matters. Put unknown or the real number, but 999, that's a little sloppy. In the report, it mentions Jason Morrison, a student pilot flying left seat in the twin with a CFI certified flight instructor. But Jason can't do that unless it's an MEI, a multi-engine instructor. And I dive deeper. The CFI was an MEI. The reporting just fails to include this. It's stuff like this, sloppy. And we'll get into the important discrepancies in the report in just a moment. But in spite of my criticisms of the NTSB investigation, the bottom line probable cause of the crash, water in the fuel leading to engine failure and subsequent loss of control, is accurate. All right, quick recap of what happened. On February 1st, 2024, Sam Ganow arrived around 12:30 p.m. local for a ferry trip in the Grumman Cougar, a very light twin-engine airplane. He expressed to those around, according to testimonies, that he was in a hurry, that he originally wanted to leave before noon. The plane had been worked on the day before for delivery to the new owner. It was moved out of the hangar and onto the ramp. We have never before seen footage between Jason from Rebuild Rescue and Sam right before this tragic flight.
Run it for a bit. I know you're in a hurry.
I know. Well, I'm definitely going to make sure that I'm going to run the fuel. Once it starts up, I'm going to have the fuel on the whole way out.
We'll come back to that. Sam, in a hurry to make his return flight, which by this time, calculating the flight times and everything else, he was already past the window. Even if he had made the trip, he would have missed his commercial flight back. And Sam decided to rush and take off. And just after takeoff, the right engine sputtered out. In multi-engine planes, when you lose an engine, it presents asymmetrical thrust that has to be counteracted before the airplane becomes unrecoverable. It's called a VMC roll, and you have seconds. Getting your multi-engine certificate, it's the center part of the training. Sam lost control and the plane crashed next to an Amish farmhouse, pretty much coming straight down. He was killed instantly. I wanted to understand what happened and how we can improve safety from this crash. And I reached out to Jason at Rebuild Rescue, and he agreed to talk with me. Jason, thanks for coming on, agreeing to come on. First of all, I can't imagine what you and your team have gone through with this. You know, I had talked to Sam, and he was such a super nice guy. I can't imagine what you guys are going through.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, I have to tell you, the last 2 years, it's been a whirlwind of just so many different things. I can't even articulate in words, the impact that Sam had on our lives and continues to. It can be really, really difficult, like every day.
I brought up to Jason how after going through the docket and final report, how I thought it was kind of sloppy. Here's his thoughts.
That were redacted. Two
Oh, really?
of
Like what?
well, two of the IAs, that were leading the repairs of the Cougar, and I believe the shop owner in Michigan, the owner of the repair station that did the work in the propellers. They were all interviewed, and their interviews were redacted. It wasn't anywhere.
I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it in the docket. I didn't know that they were interviewed.
It's not. It's not in there.
Why? Why would they not include that in the docket?
So one of the things that I did notice, the original person that was heading up the investigation, I understand he did retire.
Okay.
Through the investigation, someone else had taken over the investigation. And the thing is, like, I agree. NTSB, out of all of the different organizations that I've seen or been involved with, they actually do a good job, and they have a huge responsibility. I mean, the reality is the NTSB only has, I believe, 66 active investigators.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
yeah, like they are, I think it's 66. I could be off a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it's about 66 currently. We're in 2025 anyway. And they have a huge amount of workload. And I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that aren't a fan of this, but I truly believe they need more funding.
Yeah,
I believe
okay.
they need more manpower. They need more funding to be able to, really work through these investigations and different things, because what they do is so important.
I learned that 2 AMPIAs who did the annual were interviewed, but it wasn't included in the docket and no mention in the final report. These are the guys the final report mentions as being a contributing factor from the annual that was done a couple months before the crash. The plane sat in Michigan for what, a year and a half? Who all worked on it?
So the plane was in Michigan from the time we bought it, which was around January, the end of January of 2022. And then the repairs were finished right around December, I think 15th of 2023.
Okay.
So about 2 years, all but, from the time we purchased it and planned out the rescue, and multiple visits to Michigan, multiple IAs working on it, a shop there in Michigan, working on it and completing the work, when we weren't there, towards the end of the rescue.
Something that is confusing me in the docket. It says in the interview with you that your representative said that you did not work on the plane. Can you explain to me the context?
The reality was, part of that question from the NTSB during that meeting was, once the airplane was here, at the hangar we have in Pennsylvania. That's what that was talking about. So once the airplane was here, we actually had it sold, and the gentleman the buyer had wanted some other work done to the airplane. So an AMP was brought in, and he did a number of different things to the airplane to get it ready for the buyer.
For non-aviation people, I asked Jason if he could explain to me who could work on airplanes.
Actually, FAR aims, which is like the Bible of aviation, if you will, FAA regulations, 14 CFR 43.3 D, I believe it is. What it does is that's part of the rules that allows you to work under a certified either mechanic or repairman, which a ton of people in aviation do every day. A lot of different shops. I think you can go to pretty much any shop in America and find somebody working under a mechanic, and that's how we've always worked here. It's an opportunity for us to learn, just like so many people who have earned their A&P license that way. And it's much like a lot of pilots have done, like the owner assisted annual.
So you don't sign off on anything?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a difficult thing, kind of being the face of a channel,
Right.
of YouTube. I mean, you're commentating and at the same time learning. You know what I mean? For the last
Yeah.
4 years, I've been learning. I have, oh goodness, I think close to 3,000 hours at this point. Obviously this was 2 years ago. The incident that we're talking about, so I had less experience, but all throughout the different videos that we put out, literally, I'm a student. I'm a student learning, and we have those folks there, sometimes off camera, sometimes on camera, that are signing off on things, that are teaching, and that's been a huge part of what we do here at Rebuild Rescue, is sharing what we learn with all of the folks out there, hopefully inspiring people to support aviation.
I asked Jason to walk me through February 1st, 2024, and it wasn't easy for him. I appreciate his willingness to go there, and I hope he and his team continue to heal from this tragedy.
We were looking forward to Sam getting here. He had talked to the buyer of the airplane, and the buyer had contacted him about flying it because he saw Sam flying in so many different videos, and and he had Cougar experience.
So the buyer, to clarify, the buyer organized this ferry with Sam, not really through you guys.
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
he had, he had contacted Sam, and they were texting back and forth, and he had bought him a ticket to fly back from Tennessee where it was going, and really, looking back, which hindsight's always 2020. It was, there was so many things going on that day, for Sam. He got here a little bit late, based on the time that his ticket was to fly back here from Tennessee and to be able to fly down there and, take the plane there.
Jason, we have the video of you talking with Sam right before the flight. So walk me through what happened there.
Going to be gone with our Cougar.
I actually need a second.
Okay.
Starts up, I'm gonna have the fuel on.
Try not to get too emotional here. So, yeah, thinking back to that day, and all the different times, just kind of working together as a team. You know, one of the things that we had always stressed is safety. And that day was, and myself at the time, being a student pilot, one of the things that, my CFIs would always talk to me about is what safety standards we we follow. And I noticed that Sam was in a hurry. He didn't want to let the buyer of the airplane down, and that was Sam. He didn't want to let people down. And I had I told him to take his time.
Definitely run it for a bit. I know you're in a hurry.
I know.
Yeah, like that's tough. It's hard to it's hard to think about all that, and in hindsight, you try to do what you can, and I just reminded him to take his time, to be safe. We watched Sam depart, and as he went off in the distance, we could tell there were some issues. We hopped in the car, and we're some of the first people to be there. Is that him there?
The other planes are overflying right now to see where he went down.
Say went down?
We got there about the same time as fire and EMS crews. The fire crew, rightfully so, are shooing us away and telling everybody to get back because they had to check, for fuel, and because they were worried about fires and stuff. So so they were trying to get the caps off of the tanks, and meanwhile, we're it's just, getting kind of pushed back. And it was a tough day. It was a tough time.
What we know for sure, proven by the evidence. Well, the right engine failed because of water in the carburetor causing the engine to fail. We know the right fuel cap was missing a gasket. What we don't know, yet the NTSB final makes an assumption, is when that fuel cap lost the gasket. The NTSB says it was missing at the annual, and I've gone through the docket. I can't find anything that points to this. In fact, when they filled the tanks to the top in Michigan for the flight to Pennsylvania, according to several extremely good and knowledgeable AMPIAs that I've talked to, there should have been fuel seepage out the edges of the cap onto the wing. They told me if the gasket was missing on the cap, it would be highly likely to have fuel leakage, and you would be able to see with that blue stain on the wing trailing the cap. Pulling video from Rebuild Rescue of that flight, I can't see a stain. And this matters. With the NTSB saying at annual should have caught this, they're casting dispersion on the two AMPIAs in Michigan who performed the work. Maybe they did miss it, but it's an assumption, which is not good investigative best practices. Have an assumption, but back it up with evidence. If the right fuel cap was leaking, why was there water in the left? If the fuel cap was leaking, why wasn't there fuel stains on the right wing? The NTSB has left me with more questions on this final. Look, I get it. The reason Sam crashed is that he didn't do an adequate pre-flight and he failed to use the checklist. He didn't sump the tanks. He didn't do a run-up. At least if he had taken time to do the run-up, it's possible that the water could have gotten to the carburetor before the takeoff. But the NTSB assumption that the maintenance personnel at the shop in Michigan missed it on annual damages their reputation. We need to be accurate. And what is accurate is that Sam took shortcuts that day and paid for it with his life.
That's a good point. It could be, I think, not unfortunately not having a clean site to investigate 2 days later. It doesn't lend,
Which is when the NTSB got there, right?
Right. And it doesn't allow a sterile scene. Obviously in the footage, with the helicopter flying above, they were removed right away. And I just remember the fire crew, yelling to get back, and And, one of them, over at the tank, I don't know how, the caps were removed. I don't know if someone used a screwdriver, pried them off. I don't know. I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
do know that, they were in a rush to secure the scene and make sure that it was safe, for the
Right.
rest of the crew, for sure. Um, you know, Myself and, we were just in shock, like total
Yeah.
shock. Um, I have read, the NTSB reports. I don't agree with them, based on, I think if you look at the reports, there's a large amount of assumption to say at the time of an annual, 3 months prior, basically, that something was missed at that point.
There's a lot to take away on this one to make us better pilots and better people. Aviation is extremely unforgiving and deserves respect at all times, whether you're in a hurry or not, when you've got to get there or not, in good days and bad. If you're a pilot out there or have a hazardous job, please take away that complacency kills, to respect the job that's in an industry that requires safety.
The reality is anybody can make a mistake, and anybody can be in a different headspace, that maybe they shouldn't be. You could be a passenger in an airplane and have no aviation experience, but still see something that's not right. And
Yeah.
there's been, tons of different accident reports I've read to where that's blatant. You see it. So
Yeah.
so here is a team, and that's one of the things that we've talked about. If there's anything that you see questionable or have an idea about, or you speak up and you talk about it. It's a great time to learn. It's every single voice is better than one voice. And this really, at the end of the day, has taught us so much, so long ago. Um, so, you know, and through this, one of the things with Sam is he was a huge proponent of watching videos, and learning and sharing, and we would talk about all of this stuff so much. And I know if he were here today, um, he would he would want us to learn. He would want us to teach, um, and inherently, the reality is with, some of these systems on airplanes, some of the fuel systems, the fuel cap assemblies, there's inherently some, in my opinion, and probably other people's opinion, some design flaws. You have an indented, receded area of a cap that is going to collect water. You have, different temperatures. There's a reason why, part of a pre-flight is to check your fuel. And I learned that the week I bought my first airplane. So it's speak up, learn, and don't be afraid to say anything. Someone can get upset with you, or but that's okay.
My heart goes out to Sam's family and the team at Rebuild Rescue. Thanks for watching. And if you want to check out another report, we've got it right here. Remember, superior judgment trumps superior skills. Stay safe.